Hey kids, thanks for stopping by. This video was originally uploaded earlier in the year 2020. I decided to redo it with some commentary because there was no commentary on what you were seeing. So hopefully this one will be a little bit more informative, give you a rough idea of what I use for antennas here at the shack. And if you have any questions afterwards, put them in the comments and I'll try to answer them as best I can. Thanks. All right, so we're going to give a breakdown here on the antenna farm at KJ3N/KS3D. Starting out with the VHF array, VHF UHF array on top of the garage. That is a old drone 10-foot tripod. And going from bottom to top, there's 6 meters, 432, 2 meters, and the very tippity top is 1.2 gig. That's what I use for VHF UHF operation. You can see behind the poking there behind the Japanese maple, the dual band vertical antenna. It's an MFJ variant. It's quite tall. I want to say it's like 17 feet tall. And above that, you can see the main antenna, the 134-foot doublet, fed with ladder line. Very simple. It's up roughly between 60 and 65 feet. Works on all bands with the tuner, 80 through 10. Without any problems whatsoever. So that's that's the basic stuff which you can see from at least the street side. Now on the side yard here, coming up shortly, you will see the 40-meter full-size square or square-ish loop, about as square as I could make it. Again, it's fed with ladder line. It works on 40, no tuner. Works on 20 with no tuner. 15, it needs a little bit of help with the tuner. 10 meters, no tuner for at least most of the band. At least the novice/tech voice portion of the band, no problem. Lower part of the band, no problem. Nothing fancy about this. It's about 33.5 feet per side. As I said, as square as I could make it, and it's up roughly about 35 feet or so. Very basic. You can find any of this stuff in an antenna book, ARRL antenna book, so forth and so on. This is just wire antennas, folks. There's nothing special here. Has served me many, many years. It's at the time of this recording, which was 2016, it probably had been up for 5 or 6 years. It's still up to this day. And now we're going to take a look at the 160-meter antenna. This was, again, cobbled together just out of my head, which some people may say I am out of my head, but that's another subject. What you see here is the bottom section of a 6-meter 5/8 wave vertical that had been destroyed, basically. But the bottom section was good, had a good coax feed. There's a radial plate made out of aluminum angle, very basic, very crude. There are 32 to 36 radials. Most of them are under 45 feet. A few are 65 feet long, but certainly not 132 feet long. There's no room for that in a lot. This is essentially the vertical section consists of 450 ohm ladder line, and it goes up quite a ways. This is essentially, if you will, a ladder lead fed dipole with the ladder line tied together where it connects to the lower half of the 6-meter vertical section. The entire vertical length, I think at the time of this recording, was about 64, 65 feet. So yeah, I have quite a few trees that are quite quite tall in the backyard, as you can probably notice. It's heavily wooded back here. But the top wires, the top loading wires, or the top hat, if you will, is basically two 41-foot long pieces of wire. This is essentially what they call a Marconi T antenna. It's a very common antenna, I think, used on 160 when you don't have the room for a full-size vertical, which most people don't. and you don't have room to put a dipole 130 plus feet in the air. So it has served me well. It did come down in early 2020, not long after the 160 meter phone contest in February of 2020. I did manage to reconstruct it just in the last month or so. I guess you would say roughly about early November. I did reconstruct it. I did manage to get the vertical section a bit longer. I think it's almost 70 feet long now. And as we come around, you're going to see more ladder line. Now this ladder line here feeds, and you can barely see much of it, unfortunately, because of the trees. This is the 51-foot doublet. Again, also fed with 450 ohm ladder line, and there's a 4-to-1 balun at the end of the run on this particular antenna. This antenna will tune 40 through 10 with a tuner with no problem. The higher end of 10 meters, I don't think it even requires a tuner. It's pretty good in that respect. And what we've got here, as you can see, there's coax feeds in the air and so forth and so on. Most of that stuff has to be kept at least above, at least a good 8 feet in the air. Otherwise, you clothesline yourself in the backyard. All right, what we're going to come up here, this is the 160 meter receive loop. This is a very basic loop. If you put in 160 meter receive loop into Google search, you will find several articles on this construction. It's essentially a diamond, 20 foot in circumference. It's tuned with a couple of capacitors, one variable cap to get it to tune a little bit, to where exactly you want it. It sort of worked okay for me, but not really. That coax switch is a Meritron RCS10, which is where I put all the feed lines for the antenna, so I only have a single feed coming into the shack. The feed line here is the 134-foot doublet. It also has a 4-to-1 balun on it so that I can feed it into the coax switch. This antenna will tune, again, 80 through 10 without any problem. Yes, you will need a tuner. It's not going to tune everything. It seems to have a natural resonance on 12 meters for some reason, which I have not really completely figured out, but I'm not going to argue with it. When something works, you don't argue with it. And that's just another different angle from the ground in the backyard. And last but not least, we're going to be, hopefully you can see at least part of it. That coax that seems to be hanging in midair is not really hanging in midair. It's actually feeding a dual band vertical, which consists essentially of a dual band and dipole, where we have one vertical section and one radial, which is pointed off towards the northwest. There's a 40 meter trap somewhere in the vertical section and in the radial, and that's fed with a 1-to-1 balun. So that's what we have, folks, and thanks for paying attention.